Hey, it's a privilege to introduce Alex Shumate, a quintessential community leader, longtime managing partner at Squire's Patton and Boggs, receiver of continual recognition for his legal talents and community service. He devotes continual sharing of time and talent through his service on many organizations' boards. So thank you, Alex, for joining us today, seriously, and sharing your reflections on a wonderful career, which isn't quite over yet either.
Well, Rick, thank you very much. It's certainly a pleasure to be with all of you, and certainly always a pleasure to speak to such a distinguished group as the Columbus Downtown Rotary, and it's really wonderful to see so many familiar faces. I said earlier when I saw Mike Kehoe, and now I see one of my favorite former professors, Violet Meek, and it's just great to be here and to share with you some reflections and some thoughts on this great city that we live in, this great city that we all love, and great city that we've seen grow and prosper over the years. And I must admit that it gives one's ego a little bit of a boost to be able to talk to such a distinguished group like the Columbus Downtown Rotary. That was tempered a little bit as I was listening to the conversation as we were gathering for the Zoom call. I heard one person say, "I'm really looking forward to the speech today." And then the second person said, "Oh, who's the speaker that's going to be speaking to us?" And the first person replied, "It's Renee Shumate's husband." But it is great to be with you. And Scott, if you could put the first slide up for us, the cover slide. I want to use my time today to share with you my perspective on the growth and development of Columbus, to talk a little bit about where we've come from, how we got here, and really to stimulate your thinking about where we go in the future and how we get there. I arrived, as many of you know, in Columbus in 1975, fresh from law school at the University of Akron. My first job in Columbus was as a civil rights trial attorney, the fulfillment of a dream that could only be fulfilled here in Ohio's capital city, the great city of Columbus. Columbus was very different in 1975. Then we were the 21st largest city in the nation. Today, we're the 14th largest city. That year, Tom Moody was elected to his second term as mayor. He had not yet inspected the city, and I-270 was just completed. The skyline of Columbus featured the Levesque Tower. Next slide, please. Let me correct that. The skyline of Columbus was the Levesque Tower, and the Rhodes office building was being completed. Buildings such as the Huntington Center, the Hyatt Regency Hotel, the Rife State Office Tower, as well as the William Green Building were in our future. Scott, can you show the next slide as well? It shows that how we've grown since 1975 until today. Look at that skyline. And again, it represents our great city and the fact that we've worked together over these last 46 years to build a wonderful community. There are three lenses through which I'd like to examine the city's growth and development over the past 46 years. Two of those lenses played critical roles in the growth of our city. Next slide, please. The Ohio State University, as well as the Columbus Partnership. The third, known as Squire, Patton, Boggs today, was critical to my personal development as well as my personal growth. I believe also that that parallels the growth and expansion of many of the businesses represented on the Zoom call this afternoon. Let's start with Ohio State. Next slide. When you compare Columbus with the great cities of the country, one of the biggest differentiators that we have going for us is the Ohio State University. But in 1975, when I came to this community, there wasn't the connection between Ohio State and the city of Columbus. There wasn't that connection between the community's growth and economic development. Ohio State was primarily known as a publicly funded Midwestern university with an outstanding great football team. The late former president, Ed Jennings, is remembered for many things, including the firing of head football coach Earl Bruce. However, during his tenure as president, President Jennings constructed and led the construction of the Wexner Center for the Arts, the James Cancer Hospital, as well as the Woody Hayes Athletic Complex. But it was his leadership and his innovation in fundraising, as well as his decision to move to selective admissions, that has left the most indelible impression upon our university as well as our city. When he took over as president in 1981, the state was in a financial crunch. And as a result, OSU's funding was cut by 27%. That crisis led Ed Jennings to initiate the very first private fundraising campaign in the university's history. Prior to that campaign, OSU didn't raise private funds. That successful campaign set the university on a new path, one that not only focused on funding academics, but driving investments in research and development, healthcare, as well as a host of activities that contributed significantly to the growth of the university as well as our Columbus region. The presidents who followed Ed Jennings, next slide, while possessing different personalities, each shared a common ability to see into the future and to position OSU in the larger Columbus community for success. The first is E. Gordon Gee, who, while known as being the university's best cheerleader, is the one who established being a top-tier university nationally and internationally as OSU's primary goal. President Gee's vision, combined with his marketing genius, were critical to building OSU's reputation across the country and around the world in both academic and business circles. That allowed the university to raise the money necessary to fuel a focus on strategic planning and eventually implementation of a plan that tied the university's future and the city's future together as one. If it can be said that Gordon Gee and his marketing savvy brought more style to the university, President Britt Kerwin focused on substance in the form of academic excellence and academic standing. His tenure as president was relatively short, just 4 years, but he drove a sharpening of our focus on academics that survives to this day. One cannot consider the growth of OSU and the ever-increasing link to the city's growth and economic development without speaking of the contributions of Les Wexner. Les has served 2 terms on OSU's Board of Trustees, first from 1988 to 1997, and again from 2005 to 2012. But his impact on the university extends far beyond his time on the board, and it can't be measured alone by the financial gifts of Les and Abigail, but also his focus on leadership, strategic planning, fundraising, board governance, and benchmarking, which have significantly contributed to transforming OSU into a highly regarded elite teaching, research, service, and academic institution. Most recently, Michael Drake brought the university yet another perspective, one that emphasized access, affordability, and excellence, areas that grow in relevance every day. And it's that unique three-part contribution that combines access, affordability, and excellence that distinguishes Ohio State from other top-notch public universities. A major thrust of the university today, under the leadership of President Christina Johnson, is the new announced Innovation District. This collaborative of OSU and the City of Columbus puts students, academic researchers, city leaders, Fortune 500 businesses, and startup companies together on West Campus. Together, they seek to find and share solutions to problems with the potential to further transform our region in ways that create exciting opportunities for future generations of Columbus. Certainly, while OSU has played a major role in my career, the vehicle for my personal growth and development has been the law firm of Squire, Patton, Boggs. Next slide, please. I joined the firm, then known as Squire, Sanders, and Dempsey, in 1988 after serving as chief counsel and deputy chief of staff to Governor Richard Celeste. At that time, Squire Sanders in Columbus was considered a small Cleveland-based law firm, primarily known for its role as bond counsel to the state of Ohio. In fact, our initial office in Columbus, there were 2 lawyers specializing in public finance, here to serve one client, the state of Ohio. As this slide shows, in '75, we had 4 offices. Like many Columbus's businesses, our Columbus office and the firm grew with the city. We did it following the following: contributions from local firms, most notably Murphy, Young and Smith, who we combined with in 1989, recruitment of young talent, many from the Moritz College of Law, and like many of the companies represented on the Zoom call today, the growth of our clients. We grew with our clients. In that time, we've grown from a small specialty office to a full service office of 70 lawyers that's part of the global network of 44 offices in 19 countries. Next slide, please, Scott. A good 40% of our business in Columbus is national and another 5 to 10% international. I believe those numbers mirror the experience of many businesses in Columbus. It used to be that when one of our Columbus-based lawyers was working for an out-of-town client, that client would ask, "Why does Squire have an office in Columbus?" That's not a question that anyone asks today. The third entity, the third lens that I would like to share my thoughts on the growth and development of Columbus is the Columbus Partnership. Our firm has offices in 18 cities throughout the United States. None of them has the advantage of the CEO-led community-focused organization that we call the Columbus Partnership. Go ahead, Scott, with the next slide. We have more than 70 members who devote their time, energy, and talents to making Columbus involvement in civic good and community development a priority. Their businesses, in many cases, are national and global in scope, yet they are keenly focused locally on Columbus and its continued success. The partnership's initiatives include the Columbus 2020 Economic Development Plan, Smart Cities, and Downtown Development, which you're all very familiar with. These are initiatives that have and will continue to drive the growth and development of our city. Critical efforts that create opportunity for Columbus and a focus on where our city is going tomorrow. One aspect of the partnership's work that is often overlooked is the focus on listening. One quick example, the highly successful Columbus 2020 Economic Development Plan. Next slide, Scott. A key driver of that success was that the plan was not developed behind closed doors by community leaders, but instead the result of thousands of hours of meetings with local, civic, nonprofit, business, and community leaders who worked together to develop this plan, so that this plan was not just the partnerships plan or Columbus 2020, but it was a plan of our community. And as you can see from this slide, that was very, very successful. And I firmly believe that the new focus that's being called One Columbus will also lead us into our prosperity for the next 10 years. Turning to 2021 in our future, like the rest of the country, we in Columbus face myriad challenges when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is why this one-time civil rights lawyer is proud to co-chair the Columbus Partnerships Subcommittee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion that's focused on our community. The goal of our committee, and I quote, is to understand the interplay between equity and economic development and use that knowledge to help rectify Columbus's racial wealth gap and inequities. As a lawyer, and there are many lawyers on the call today, we firmly believe that words are important. To me, the most important words in the statement that I just read are understand and knowledge. Next slide, Scott. Acting in a vacuum, we don't have enough of either of these ingredients to even begin to fashion a way forward. Further, our community is blessed with a number of very strong, successful organizations devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the charge of our committee and the spirit that the Columbus Partnership is trying to lead with our DEI initiative is to work with existing organizations and help move our community forward. And in talking with Scott on Friday, I was told that you're working the Columbus Downtown Rotary with Linden and the organizations there that are trying to improve our city. And I certainly commend you for that. These are difficult, systematic, generational issues, but we can't back down. Perhaps as Ed Jennings did all those years ago when he faced a financial crisis that threatened the future of the university, we need to find non-traditional ways to address this crisis. What I do know is we won't find that way without listening to the entire community. Perhaps the route to finding the answers lies in the guiding principles of our initiatives. One of them stands out to me as the essence of what makes Columbus special. And again, I quote, operate with a sense of humility and an enduring commitment to the values of the Columbus way. First of all, collaborate. Secondly, communicate, not just with our words, but with our actions. And third, care. Care about all people in our community. Collaborate, communicate, and care. That's the Columbus way. That's what's been a key to our success. And I believe going forward, it'll be a key that will benefit our entire community. I certainly believe in the spirit of Columbus and in the spirit of Ohio State University. Together we can, together we will. Let's continue to make our great city a great place to live, work, and raise our families. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Alex. Looks like we have a first question from Hugo Trucks. Hugo?
Yeah, my question was, number one, thank you for your continued service, Mr. Shumate. It's been a pleasure being here in town 50 years and seeing your name. I have a question about nonprofit boards. As we've seen numerous times, executive staff often have their own financial agendas, often in the bigger, very huge boards and huge nonprofit agencies. NRA is the biggest case that we've seen in the national media. My question is, do you think that nonprofit boards structure should be changed to allow for better oversight, maybe prevent hand-picked boards, or do you have any suggestions how to improve oversight on large boards, if it's even needed? Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question. And certainly, as you know, post Sarbanes-Oxley, there's really been a focus on boards being independent and boards being very, very focused on their fiduciary duties. And I'm certainly a believer in nonprofit boards that take their role of independence, their role of fiduciary responsibility, their role of oversight very, very seriously. And going to your point, a number of nonprofit boards are large in order to meet their fundraising goals. But it's interesting, as we think about Ohio State University, there were only 9 members on the Board of Trustees. We used other committees, other advisory groups, but certainly by having that focused look through a board that took its role seriously, I think we were able to get some very, very effective results. So I'm a firm believer that you have a board, perhaps it's a governing committee or an executive committee that provides the extra scrutiny. But as you know, and as your question implies, it's really important today to make sure that the finances are spent wisely, that the finances are spent consistent with the mission, objectives, goals, and vision of that organization. And it's just really important to have a strategic plan in place and to work with the executives of the nonprofit in order to move our community forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hugo. All right, Callaway is next, looks like.
Alex, again, thank you for all you've done. I remember years ago you were asked at one of the steering committees that I was on with you as the chair. They said, Alex, how do you get all the law practice work done and serving on all these roles? Well, I get in the office at 4:00 a.m. and the person then retracted their question. My question is along the lines of One Columbus and the CEOs. How do they believe about their associates joining service organizations like Columbus Rotary?
I think that service organizations that I'm familiar with very much are in favor of their associates joining groups like the Columbus Rotary. I've often said, Callaway, and as you know, over the years we have worked together, and we've shared the same thought that part of the important growth and development of professionals in our community comes from their involvement with nonprofit and community-based organizations. One of my mentors used to say to me that the study of law, while it expands your knowledge of the law, can narrow you as a person if you don't become aware of what's happening in your community. So as, again, we've talked about Callaway, at Squire, we firmly encourage and support our young associates to get involved in the community, to grow with the community. We think it helps our community, but it also helps them become well-rounded, better lawyers, and better citizens.
Thanks, Callaway. Rick Studer had a question.
Columbus has been in the news lately, unfortunately, but given the whole issue of police responsibility and evaluation of practices, I have deep faith in our community and certainly our police force and our ability to work through these things. But I'd be really interested, Alex, in your perspective on all this.
It's a great question, and it's certainly an issue that has the focus and attention of the leadership in our community. And quite frankly, it's not representative of the community that we love and the community that we talked about. And this is an issue we've got to get our arms around. You know, this morning I was watching the news, there was another shooting, and this violence in our community is something that we've got to get a hold of. So one of the things that I've been supportive of is the notion of neighborhood policing. I think that's important from what I've learned from colleagues throughout the country. I think also that the greater emphasis on police training is very, very important. And I do think that, you know, as a community, when we identify an issue and we come together and work together, and as I said in my remark, we've got to listen. I think we have to listen to our police force, and we're all supportive of our police force, and realize that the vast, vast majority are great professionals who engage in their activities. And we have to figure out how to get our arms around this violence in our community, and also I think better training in areas like de-escalation of situations. But again, through the Columbus way, collaborating, communicating, and caring, I believe we can get our arms around this and move our community forward.
Thanks, Rick. Now we have District Governor Steve Heiser.
Yes, thanks for speaking to us, Alex. I guess my question is, what are the top 3 priorities of the Columbus Partnership, and how does the partnership intend to move forward on those priorities?
It's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because we want to be clear that economic development is in fact our #1 priority. I think that one of the things, again, I've been very fortunate to have good mentors. And one of my mentors emphasized with me that any organization needs to do what it does uniquely and best, and make sure that that organization focuses on that. What is it you do uniquely and best? And the partnership has demonstrated that economic development, again, not just attraction of businesses in our community, but supporting the businesses that are here, retaining those businesses, is critically important. So that's our #1 priority. I think that secondly, just based again upon what's going on in the community and the relationship between the economic development and diversity, equity, and inclusion, that we're tackling that as a top priority. In fact, we have 3 work groups, work streams. The first is on education. All of us need to be educated. We need to establish a foundation. So there's a subcommittee that's focused on education, not just the partnership members, but the community as a whole. The second is an organizational focus, that the 70 members of the partnership have all committed to looking in the mirror, as I call it, and saying, what is it that we can do on our own? Whether it's diversity of our workforce, whether it's in our C-suite, whether it's our board of directors, whether it's our departments, what is it we can do to, in fact, as an organization, be better when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion? And then the third group is the one that I'm co-chairing with Tanny Crane, which is saying, look, we've got good organizations in our community that with more support, with more investment, can carry out important functions for our community. So we're in the process of identifying those organizations, partnering with them, and we want to create a leadership environment where as a community, we're all committed to diversity and inclusion. And I think the third area that we're focused on is the combination of workforce development and education. Those are so important. And as you know, we've lost some new businesses that wanted to locate in our community because they were concerned about whether we would have the proper workforce to support that business. And we've got to get our arms around that so that we have that workforce that is trained. We're focused on micro degrees, that in fact, everyone doesn't need necessarily a 4-year degree, and really supportive of the combination of our universities, not just Ohio State, but Columbus State, which is doing a great job in our community, as well as the 14 private independent colleges that are in Central Ohio. So those would be the 3 priorities that we've identified.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Tom Carlisi.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex, for wonderful presentation and responses. I'm going to follow up on what Steve Heiser just asked. I'm going to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And our Columbus Rotary has created a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force. We can build into that. Also, Rotary International has a new guideline mandating that every Rotary club in the world, over 35,000 clubs, integrate into a DEI program. My question to you is, what reflections do you have for our club on how we might further develop our DEI initiative? And what might we do to collaborate with you and others possibly going forward?
Thank you for that. One of the things that I think is so important is what you've already done, which is to identify diversity, equity, and inclusion as a priority. And that's one of the things that if we can get more of our organizations, I mean, when I look at this Zoom call and see the experience, the talent, the expertise that exists, by coming together and focusing, making this a priority is a key first step. Again, the initiative that Scott and I were talking about on Friday in terms of what you're doing in the Linden community, that's one of the areas that's the toughest for us to get our arms around, like with the policing issues that we talked about earlier. So I think that I commend you for going into an area like that where there's a strong need and partnering with the existing organizations to help in that community. And I think just like we try to do with the partnership, talk to your organizations about what you're doing. Talk to the nonprofit boards and commissions that you're involved in. So we really leverage this kind of activity with the other organizations that we touch and interface with. And this is a journey. It, in fact, is a marathon. And it's going to take us a while. It's going to take sustained efforts. And one of the things that the partnership is very focused on is trying to identify initiatives that are going to have a long-term effect. All of us on the call, like Mike Kehoe and I, were very active with the chamber, believe it or not, probably 25 years ago. And we had a very, very effective partnership program on supplier diversity. And unfortunately, it hasn't been sustained. So one of the things I would really encourage is to figure out how we institutionalize these initiatives and how we sustain them, because that's going to be the key so that we can make sure that beyond our lifetimes and beyond our involvement with the community, that there are efforts that are focused, like the Rotary effort, on making a difference and being a positive force in the community.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. One last question from Manana.
So this is a sports question. So what's your thoughts on the possibility of the crew changing their logo?
Banana and I go way back to Capitol Club.
I know.
She was a
Back in
leader
the 80s.
in New Albany, yes. I heard about that like you did, and I am in a wait and see mode. I certainly understand moving into the new stadium and the focus on really taking the crew to the next level, but that's something that they want to look at. But like you, I'll wait and see.
Me too. Thank you.
Thanks, Banana. Well, Alex, we really want to thank you. It's been great hearing from you. Good to see that you're in good health and you're feeling better. And I really appreciate the 3 C's: to collaborate, communicate, and care. I think you're right. That's nail on the head, so to speak. And I think if we all work together to make that happen, we're going to continue to have a great, great city. So
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, thanks for all the great work that downtown Rotary is doing. So I'll sign off and let you do your other business, but thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Alex.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining today. Please share our Zoom invites with your friends and others. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Everybody have a great week, and we are adjourned.